Hi, this is John Jackson Miller, Star Wars author. You're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you were looking for.
Riddle me this, crime fighter. What room can no one enter? If you figure it out, look for another royal riddle in this crowd.
Well, bat something or other, isn't it? Who invited you? You know what happens to gate crashers? They have to match wits with the Riddler.
And the humorous but sinister Riddler.
Just a friend, but you can call me the Riddler.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi, your family-friendly, spoiler-free Star Wars podcast where intelligent conversation and a splash of humor bring fans together from across the galaxy. I'm your host, Dan Zare, educator and Star Wars author. Whether you're a lifelong Jedi Master or just hopped off your first Star Cruiser, grab your cap and join us as we explore the mythology, philosophy, and wonder of a galaxy far, far away. One conversation at a time. Coffee with Kenobi is more than a podcast. It's a community. Together we celebrate the people, stories, and experiences that make Star Wars so special, creating a space where fans can come together and share their voices. Thank you to the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi, MEI Travel and Mouse Fan Travel. Check out coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel for a no-cost, no-obligation quote, and let them know Coffee with Kenobi and Dan Zare sent you. On the special Batman episode, yes, I know Batman is not really related to Star Wars, but you know who is? John Jackson Miller, the New York Times bestselling author of so many wonderful Star Wars books, has the sequel to his Batman book set in the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman universe. The book is called Batman Revolution. It comes out on October 21st, and I can't wait to talk to you and talk to John and editor Tom Hoeler all about it. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite mug, and let's have Coffee with Kenobi. You know, I debated starting the show with like pow, bang, but that would not be appropriate. That is not the Batman that we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about Batman Revolution, the second book in John Jackson Miller's splendid duology, and fingers crossed that there are more to come. I am joined by the author of Batman Revolution. He is, of course, as we say every time, if you're the first ever guest on Coffee with Kenobi, John Jackson Miller. John, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here. My card, gentlemen.
Outstanding. He has got his original Joker.
Well, somebody gave this to me in Greece. That was, I have no idea exactly how they got it, but there it is.
Oh, okay. That is
no.
great.
It's lacking. It's lacking in authenticity, as no one has shot it.
But still, well, let's hope it stays that way.
I hope so.
Also joining us, he is the editor supreme, Tom Hoeler. Tom, welcome back to the show 2 times in a row. You're basically my co-host.
Not a bad gig to have. Nice to
Yes.
Nice to see you again. Nice to talk again.
It's great. I am so grateful that we get to do this conversation. And actually, when John was on to promote Batman Resurrection, I remember thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we could have John and Tom to talk about this book? And now we're going to get to do it with the book that is coming out next week at the time of this recording. We are very excited for it, and I'm looking for the date. It's slipping my mind. Where is it?
October 21st.
October. Oh, there it is right there. October 21st.
In hardcover, audiobook, and ebook.
Yes. And I have read the book. It is not only is it a worthy sequel to Batman Resurrection, it is just a fabulous Batman story. John, when you were writing Resurrection, was there always kind of a plan to bring the Riddler into this and to hopefully write a sequel, or how did that come about?
Yeah, this was always conceived of as a big 950-page story. And, I was going to plant our antagonist for book 2 into book 1. and in such a way that really, you know, plugged into the second story, and you know, you're really getting a prologue to book two, especially given how large book two is relative to book one. It kind of feels like you know, this is the first of three acts, and two acts are in book two.
I like that description a lot. And last time, of course, you and I talked a lot about our love of Batman and the character and the many iterations. But Tom, I would love to pick your brain. Kind of, how did you? I'm assuming you're a huge Batman fan. How did you fall in love with this character?
Batman is very much like the first character that at least I can recall, maybe not, but the first character that I can remember glomming onto in terms of like connecting with, being so fascinated by, and also then being so instantly fascinated and learning everything about the character. Like, it wasn't just that every, you know, day I wanted to like watch Batman the animated series, or I wanted to like rewatch the 89 Batman film a billion times and wear a bunch of Batman t-shirts. It was also that like I wanted to read as many Batman stories as I could, learn everything about every version and iteration of the character that it was. And it might in part be connected to the fact that I'm fairly certain that Batman was kind of my way into comics, and was my way into learning that, you know, comics as a medium has this unique quality of like, yes, there's a character Batman, but did you realize there's like multiple versions of this character, or at least multiple ways in which the character has been represented, because of the way that comic writers and artists in particular turn over in a way that, like, at least at the time that I was a kid in the early 90s, like we really weren't there yet with movies, and Batman or other kinds of storytelling is much more static. And so that is where my like intense affinity for Batman came from. And it was a combination of the Batman that we see in the Tim Burton films with Michael Keaton, but then also the Batman from the animated series that came just a few years later, and in fact came right on the heels of Batman Returns. Those were the two Batman that happened to enter my life, relatively speaking, simultaneously.
The animated series is a superlative Batman, I would say, but the Michael Keaton Batman, of course, was so instrumental in taking this character. Yes, Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns was a massive part of it, but the Batman film reached more people. It just did, and that's just the nature of the medium itself. But then you get to this one, and Tom, we'll throw it out to you first, and I because John and I talked about this a little bit before. What was important to you about capturing the essence and spirit of the Tim Burton Batman verse, and what kind of challenges did you face?
So, because there are so many versions of Batman, of course, if you're going to tell a Batman story and you pick a Batman, in this case, you know, the 89 Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman, the Tim Burton Batman, however you classify it, it has to read and feel like that character and like that version of Gotham, because every version of Batman is not just a version of a singular character. It's actually a version of an entire world, an entire city of Gotham. The aesthetic of Gotham in the Burton Batman is unique. The technology, the sort of timelessness of like, we're kind of in, I don't know, the 50s, the 60s, some sort of, you know, sort of timeless neo-Gothic place. And so getting all of that right, just getting the descriptors right, getting the technology right. And John and I spent a lot of time talking about, like, you know, what sorts of technology was available at that time to, like, you know, would have been available to like the newspaper or the police. And then if Batman is creating his sort of high-tech version of that, like, what is then the riff on that baseline? But it's all of that. And then it's just like inhabiting the character and the performance of Michael Keaton, which is like a challenge. But the nice thing is that we have two movies of it, you know, to really, we actually have like a pretty good motif to be able to pull from. And so all of those things are sort of challenges, but really just means like, I don't know, you just have to watch the movies a whole bunch of times. You just have to like really dig into it. And you have to dig into like the subtle differences in what makes Keaton's Bruce Wayne and Keaton's Batman different from all the other ones. And then again, the subtle differences in the way in which Tim Burton has constructed Gotham versus, say, how like Christopher Nolan constructed Gotham or anybody else. And teasing that stuff out, which is why John and I spent several months before John even like went into outline, just sort of bandying back and forth about not just Batman in general when we were spinning this up, but also this particular Batman and like why we both connected and why we both had an affinity for this Batman. And through those conversations, we were teasing out those things about like what makes this version of Batman unique or what makes it stand out from the others. So we kind of did a lot of that legwork even before we started talking about like, well, what's our story or sort of what's our goal with the duology.
Well, and actually, you made me think of something I wanted to ask John about. John, I think one of the most important things about the Keaton interpretation of the Batman is the way he moves. Mm-hmm. There's a stiffness and a rigidity, which of course is part of that is because of the costume, but also kind of adds to the pathos of the character and the menace of the character to the criminal underworld. And the way you write him in both of these books, you capture that essence quite beautifully. What is sort of your secret to that?
Well, he's very deliberate, and yeah, it's true. He can't turn his head. So there's that. That is a small issue, but you know, the whole idea of him, you know, stalking around these scenes and just trying to look, you know, larger than he actually is. That's part of what the purpose of the cape is, to you know, create fear. You know, I did a rewatch of the movie online a ways back with Carl Newman, who refers to himself as the ballet bat. He was the movement double for Batman. There were 4 doubles, or actually there were 4 different people in the suit for Keaton, because there's Keaton himself in all the close-up shots, and then of course there's the stuntman, and then there's the combat double. And then you know, what Carl does is he does a lot of the manipulation with the cape, and getting into and out of rooms and cars and things. And it's Carl that you see on top of the building at the very end of the first movie. And again, there is a, you know, deliberateness of all of his actions, because, well, in part, if he takes too wrong a turn, he's going to go tumbling with that outfit that he's got on. The suit has got to weigh a lot, even if we imagine that there's all this super technology involved. And so he's going to be somebody who's going to be very cautious about the steps that he takes. But then, you know, on the Bruce Wayne side, you know, you see that Michael Keaton is always watchful. He's always, you know, just sort of scoping things out, no matter where he is. You know, that wonderful scene, you know, downtown, one of the few scenes in daylight, where he's, you know, there to lay the roses down on his parents' death site. And then just happens to, you know, happen upon the massacre of the mobsters on the steps of City Hall. You see him just sort of standing there saying, what's going on? And then seeing the mime and all of these things happening. And he doesn't even notice when he's being shot at, or when a bullet nearly you know, takes a bit of his collar out. You know, again, you know, this is something where, because we're in prose, we can really get into what's going on behind those eyes and what's going on in his mind and what he's calculating and what he's seeing and you know, what he's trying to figure out. And that's something that you can't really do in any other medium.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever, as a writer, like physically stand up and sort of say, hey, how would I describe this, and move around like you were Michael Keaton?
I stopped doing that a long time ago. People would, you know, the various FedEx people and postal workers would stop and see me standing on top of things. No, you know, I am you know, very much a mind's eye kind of person. So, but I would definitely. All of the works that I do, there are, you know, set pieces. There are big set pieces. I've got to know where everything is I've got to know, where things are relative to one another. There's a big sort of a amphitheater place in the second book where, in my mind's eye, I don't even have it sketched out. I know what's where. If I have to, I can construct this thing in 3D. And again, it used to be that was something where I would actually have to draw maps like crazy, but it's just sort of there now.
Right. It's almost like muscle memory to a degree with all the writing you've done. So the movie, of course, features the Joker. We have Clayface in Resurrection, but then we come to the Riddler. So why? I think I can probably guess based on just the book itself, but I'm curious, why the Riddler? Why was that the next logical choice for you?
Well, I think that we knew that we didn't want to duplicate what they were doing in Batman 89 in the comics, and at that point, there'd been no conversations about putting the Riddler in the comics or anything else. They actually do have a character that when you read our novel, you'll understand what his relationship to our character is. But since we're inhabiting a world in which the Schumacher films are not part of the tapestry, since they're very distinct in terms of their rules for the universe and also just aesthetically, I was looking at it and saying, well, let's go ahead and bring him in and try to do a completely different kind of a story than your usual Riddler story. One of the problems with writing the Riddler for anybody who's tackled him is that if you want to stay with the conceits that have been, put out all along for the character, you're struggling with a character whose MO makes no sense. You've got a guy who is sending Batman the clues he needs to capture him. Or if you subvert it, he's sending Batman the clues he needs to get caught in a trap. Well, Michael Keaton's Batman is too smart to even bother messing with this. And so I needed to think of, well, what's another way, or what are some other ways that I can give these devices life in the story. I already had the idea that I wanted to do the sort of player on the other side kind of a thing, where Batman has a parallel character in town who existed long before he did, doing good work, and I wanted to have a bit of an alliance there, but also a rivalry that would eventually go completely wrong. And then I had the notion of, well, let's actually take the technology that did exist by 1989 and see how could this person, particularly if he were a frenetic, magnetic, fascinating person to listen to, how could this person move everyone to action? Both by asking questions and giving answers. And it results in a very interesting version of the Riddler, for whom giving the answers is as important as actually asking the questions.
Oh, very well said. That, and when I knew it was going to be the Riddler, was it hard to kind of not insert the Jim Carrey aspect of this, or was it fairly easy to distance yourself? I love that performance, but it's a different thing.
It wasn't hard at all.
Good.
Because we've seen that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I was going to go in a different direction.
Well, and when we started talking about, okay, it's the Riddler, obviously we much like we had when we were making, developing Clayface for Resurrection, is like, okay, it's this Batman villain that we all know, but how does that Batman villain manifest again in the Tim Burton universe, right? In the Michael Keaton universe. So how does it fit that, all those, the aesthetics, all those elements? But then also in doing that, we really kind of built the character from the ground up as far as like, all right, well, who is our Riddler? We understand what he's going to do as the Riddler, broadly speaking, but who are they behind that? And as we had those conversations and as we built up who that person was going to be, it was actually pretty easy to kind of avoid or not really end up in the same basket as any other iteration of the Riddler, because we were really trying to build a kind of fully realized and dimensionalized character who then so happens to put on a green outfit and start messing around with Gotham City.
And we give him a real good reason for the green outfit. Yes. We give him a good reason for all of these things. And, when he throws in the little riddles every so often, he'll just as part of his patter. We understand why he does that. And we understand that these have been part of how he communicates going all the way back to childhood. And so we really follow the thing that we were trying to do all along, which is match Burton for pathos, match him for he wants to try to show these people who are misshapen or damaged in some way by society or by events, how they're working out their issues on this citywide scale with lots of destruction and lots of everything. And Batman is one of them who is working out his issues. And the people of Gotham beware. They're things are crashing around. But as with the Penguin and Catwoman particularly, the viewer is not just interested in whether these people defeat one another, hand to hand. We'd like to actually see them get some closure or healing or whatever. I think it was, Gene Siskel in his review said, this is the first superhero movie where you really want everybody to hit, he's talking about Returns, where you really want everybody to hit sort of an equilibrium at the end, where you want to see, can these people actually, relax and be healed, and stop doing what they're doing. And, of course, Batman turns out to be the healthiest of anybody because he's got Alfred, and the others do not.
Well, and you tapped into something about the villains in this, that it's not just so simple as white hat, black hat. For some of them it is. The Joker it is. But from these other characters, it's the human side of them that isn't often portrayed, particularly in the Riddler. The Riddler to me is one of my favorite villains, but he's so rarely done correctly, at least from my certain point of view, to coin your other character, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But I also think that what you do with this character, and I can't wait to see what people think about it, is make him human. And there's still that sensational part of him, but he's not sensationalized. I think it's portrayed quite well in the prologue, which I won't give away here, but I really loved that treatment.
Yeah, I when I was 13 years old, my mother and I rebuilt a library from scratch. She was starting out as a grade school librarian, and the first school that hired her, it had this big metal building that had not seen an actual human being running it in 5 years, and so everything looked like a tornado had hit. And I spent the summer with her organizing it, creating a card catalog, shelving books. I spent just as much time, basically loafing off. That's when I read all the Michael Crichton novels. That's when I read, that's the first time I read the C.S. Lewis books, and just reading all sorts of, things. And I'm like, well, can I capture this sort of a thing where this is somebody who has living in a library was kid at a candy store kind of a thing to him. This is what he was thriving on. But unlike my situation with my mother, who actually passed the day after I finished this novel, she had a stroke that after I told her that I had finished the book and we had a nice conversation. She had a stroke the next day, and that was the last conversation we ever had. And she passed about a week and a half after that. But we had a relationship where she encouraged me to express myself creatively, and I wanted to have Norman stifled for some very good reasons, the same reasons that forced them into this situation in this library to begin with. And so really, he is kind of crushed by, the fact that he can't express his ambitions. He doesn't have the resources. He doesn't have anything Bruce Wayne had, and he doesn't have a supportive Alfred.
True. And they established early on that they're basically the same age as well. Tom?
That's right.
Wait, Tom, were you about to say something?
Well, so what I was going to build on with that was that one of the other things that we thought about with the Riddler was we were trying to think about different ways in this book to challenge Bruce and to challenge Batman, different from how we see him challenged in Batman 89 by the Joker, and different from how we had challenged him with Clayface. And in thinking about the Riddler, we came upon this opportunity for one. The Riddler is someone who, from Bruce's detective skills and his intellect, the Riddler can challenge him intellectually. The Riddler can actually challenge his mind, different from how Clayface challenge him physically, and Joker sort of challenges him in a variety of ways, if in no small part just due to his kind of general mania and anarchy. But the Riddler challenges Bruce and Batman's intellect, which was interesting. But also, and this informs so much of John building Norman the way that he does, one of the great things about Batman and his Rogues Gallery is there are so many different dimensions to the Rogues Gallery. He's got characters like the Joker who are just as evil. Like, the Joker is just evil. That's just his thing. Just wants to watch the world burn. That's his thing. But then there are other characters who are varying degrees of, maniacal or evil. But then there are also people who are not actually bad people. They do bad things. They make bad choices. They make decisions that lead to badness, and they fall into patterns, or they happen to fall down a path of doing bad. But they're not necessarily inherently evil in the way that someone like the Joker is. And that challenges Bruce and Batman, because there are some villains and some of his rogues who there is a way that he can empathize or understand them in a way. And we felt that the Riddler and Norman could be one of those characters, which gives you such a great arc to play in someone sort of falling down and becoming bad, but also in terms of how Batman has to resolve his conflict with him, because it isn't really just about fighting evil to fight evil. And so that played a lot too into not just choosing the Riddler, but also why it made for such a really great storytelling opportunity.
And it is. I would say not only is it great storytelling, but it's also compelling. And one of the reasons it's compelling is because of the puzzles, because of the riddles. And the two of you have some great fun contextually with this novel. Again, I don't know how much has been made public. I don't want to spoil anything, but boy, to be a fly on the wall listening to you two map these things out. What can you share? What would you like to talk about in regards to the puzzles and the way you've broken this book up?
I mean, I think it's first worth just setting the stage by it was actually New York Comic-Con a year ago. So when we were kind of celebrating Batman Resurrection coming out, and that John and I were checking in and just sort of talking about where Revolution is going. And we had an initial conversation of, what if we put puzzles in this thing? Yeah. Could we put puzzles in this thing? And not just could, but I think we need to, because it's the Riddler. You can't just have him say, riddle me this and go off. It is actually making puzzles part of the reading experience was something that we talked about for a while, and then we just kind of figured out how to do it both within the context of the story, and then we work with a really cool designer. His name is Edwin. He's the layout designer of the book. So he laid out both Batman Resurrection, Batman Revolution. And we brought these ideas of like, hey, if we come up with some ideas for some puzzles and things, could we integrate them into the layout? And Edwin did a whole bunch of samples and tests. We gave him sample material. We made dummy puzzles, and he iterated on a bunch of designs in order to help us integrate John's puzzles and other puzzles into the book, beyond just, again, the sort of text. But that started, John, with the puzzle that you made that is in the front of the book.
Yeah, that is the newspaper feature, which is called Riddle Me This. And this is a major part of the whole thing. That this is how Norman has been expressing himself up to this time. He's been putting his jokes into a newspaper feature, which is what we could visualize as being sort of the equivalent madness of Wordle, or what I would harken back to is there was an app a few years ago called Trivia HQ, where it would be it was a gambling thing where you'd sit there answering questions, and you would get a share of the puzzle, the jackpot at the end of it, if you got everything right. And I'm like, well, how do I make that work in the 80s? And how is that made worthwhile? Well, there's no legalized gambling in Gotham City, so this is a way to actually have this contest where people could, submit their answers and get something. And what I wanted to do, I constructed that's a design that was entirely this is a very weird thing where I designed it. Actually, I think to begin with in Microsoft Excel and the grid. And then I took it all into Photoshop and added the questions. And the whole notion is that it's there are all these clues that work together into a multiple choice thing that then gives you one final question that gives you the secret word for the day, the cash word. And there's various levels of if you get this right and this right and this right in the postcard that you send in or whatever, you're in a different drawing, or you get a share of the money. And what I wanted to do was have a puzzle where a number of the questions are easy, a number of the questions are just wickedly hard, and some of them are many of them are punny. And then there are a number that are only gonna work in Gotham City if you live there. So add it to Wayne, it becomes industrial. Add it to Knox, it becomes rich. Or add it to Wayne, he becomes industrial. Add it to Knox, he becomes rich. Well, that's the word Fort. Fort Wayne, industrial city. Fort Knox, gold reserve. And this is the Riddler kind of, or rather, Norman kind of doing a joke based on rich man Bruce Wayne in town and his friend Alexander Knox. And one of the fun things is that this is the puzzle that appeared the first day of the modern era time of the story, the post prologue time of the story, when we've actually got Norman in the story. And so you've got something that Alfred is working on at the table, and he's able to observe about it. You get Norman thinking about what went into it. You've got Selena. You've got other characters, making reference to this thing, and it's just a random puzzle. Although, there actually is I know we're about to run the puzzle in a media location, and in the next couple of days, and the answer to this puzzle does actually relate to the mystery of the greater mystery of the story. And I guess that's one of the other things that I think is unique to what our approach was. We've got Bruce and the Riddler trying to solve mysteries at the same time, and they're getting to the answers in different ways. And this is part of their conflict. They're getting to the answers in different ways. The Riddler would love nothing more than to be, Batman's pal, Norman, Norman Pickus, but maybe not. Again, this allows us to get into Bruce's head a bit, because he's not trustful of any help other than Alfred. And we get a very nice, I think, subplot with him and Commissioner Gordon in this, which is that, he why is he Batman? He's Batman because the cops failed him. And even though they're supposedly working together now, he still doesn't fully trust them. And this is something that, we wanted to show the evolution of Batman's activities over time, because by the time you get to the second movie, it's clear that they've just basically resigned most of the police activity, just supporting Batman and letting him do what he's going to do. But there had to be steps involved there, and we give everybody a step.
I should note for anyone listening that the answer to this puzzle is also in the book. It is in the very back of the book. So if you want to challenge yourself in trying to solve it, either while you're reading or before you read the book, the answer key is in the back of the book. We felt like it was probably fair to include the answer key. And then there are even some other puzzles that we designed and added so that if you want to learn what the parts of the book are called, you have to actually solve a little word search, or you can turn the page and see the answer. But I think once we settled on this idea of putting one puzzle in the book, we really dialed it up to like, how far can we go in making the book an interactive object with puzzles? So I hope people, and I will say that when John sent in this very first newspaper puzzle, the first thing that I did is I sat down and I solved it. It took me like 40 minutes, and actually I solved it without solving each of the questions. Which
is a feature and not a bug.
Yes. So I got each of the sort of secondary questions. I just figured them out. And then once I had that, I figured out what the sort of code word was, having not totally solved all of the individual questions.
The way that Norman has constructed the puzzle, and they've constructed the contests, is if you get the secret word, you're in one jackpot. If you get the 4 words that build up to it, you're in another jackpot. And if you get all 16, you're in another drawing. And the whole intention was that people could be able to enter without solving the whole thing, and that you could work backwards and get things. I didn't want it to be so extremely hard that nobody would be able to participate in it. And that's kind of another interesting thing about our Riddler, is most of his riddles he intends for people to solve. It's no good to him if nobody can solve it. The really hard ones, those are for him to solve, and for Bruce to solve independently.
Oh boy, I have so many follow-up questions, but I don't want to spoil things for people. But just for fun, John, was it fun? Did you get to stump Tom at all? Did that ever get to happen? Besides,
I don't.
Will he admit it? Will he admit it on the show? Do you think?
I don't. Well, there was really nothing like that. I don't think there was.
Because it stumped me. It stumped me. Yeah.
There were never, because in writing the story, it's like he'd write he gives the riddle, and then there is the answer. So there was sort of never a moment where there wasn't necessarily a stumping. There was 1 or 2 places where I think we had to discuss whether or not something qualified as a riddle or not, or whether or not the answer to a particular riddle, the phrasing was totally dialed in for that to be.
Whether it was the only answer, that's the other thing.
Or whether it was the only valid answer. which especially, and that is one of the challenges doing a Riddler story is like, because the Riddler's riddles are often meant to cause you to, move you towards either a course of action or a decision or something.
Yeah.
The riddles can't have multiple answers,
Right.
lest you choose, to do something that the Riddler did not intend. Suddenly his carefully orchestrated house of dominoes just ceases to fall down because you've walked away to go do something else. So there were a couple of those, but yeah, that was sort of. I think we spent some time too, just throwing riddles back and forth at each other.
That must
just
have been
for
so fun.
as general inclusion, and at one point actually we were thinking about trying to put a riddle on the back of the book before we went in a different direction. So we were.
Yeah,
we were
that's my scrawl on the back of the book, and
that's John's handwriting.
And now, and we've decided now that to save money, I'm just going to do all the covers in my own handwriting. It's,
watercolors.
Yeah, no, it's I think I'd better not.
So it says question everything on the back. I tell my students that for very different reasons, but that's another part of this. The riddles. This is a fun book. It makes you think. It's very character driven. The prose, of course, is great, but that's what we've come to expect from John. But it's fun. Like when I got to the puzzles, just for a second, without getting beat up, I got to be Batman because I had to solve the puzzles. And it is a really fun way to put you in the head of Bruce Wayne or put you in the head of Batman, or just to feel like you're part of solving this great mystery. And I think that's a major coup, gentlemen. I really just want to thank you just as a fan. That was a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, hopefully this feels different than certainly any other Batman novel or any other Riddler story.
It does.
And, the battle is always going to be with people's expectations, no matter what, anyway. But I think there's no way anybody's going to get done with this book and say that there weren't enough little mind teasers in there. And, there's just a whole lot of different ones. I mean, we have, historical mysteries. We've got, serial killer patterns. We've got, just a variety of things where the reason for doing the riddles is there's a lot of different reasons that they appear. And sometimes they're done as affectations. Sometimes they're done to entertain. And so, and again, it's all against this backdrop of what is a different kind of Batman story in a sense, in that we've gotten to visit the underground, or rather the underworld in the previous books. This is really the underground, the local political scene. And again, this is something where, because this is a mishmash of 1939 to 1989 and everything in between, I got to imagine, what a peculiar, bunch of, ragtag organizations might look like in a Tim Burton aesthetic. We know in these movies that there are a variety of social ills in Gotham City. We know the city is broke. We know that apparently things are so bad that people are willing to go rush out into the street and get for a chance at money dumped on them by a guy who was just trying to poison the city. We also know that there's this outside the snow globe that we're given of Gotham City and Wayne Manor. We know the outside world is got a variety of ills in the form of Corto Maltese and the little we know about the war there, and then also the Defense Department is designing chemical weapons that have their impact on the story here. So there were a number of different threads that I was able to sort of pull together and knit into sort of the patchwork that we get in this book.
I love that. And Tom, how much fun is it to not only work in Batman, but how much fun is it to work with this guy?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot
until my 50-page outlines show up.
No, but see, that is the beautiful thing. So this book, I mean, Batman Resurrection had a decently sized outline, but this book, in part because we kind of knew it was going to be a bigger story, it was going to be a longer story, but also because, like, in building riddles and ciphers and things, like, it just takes more time, not just in story, but also particularly at the front end of figuring out, are all these dominoes going to line up that when we start to push them over, it's going to fall in a satisfying pattern. So I, as an editor, I love getting like a 40 or 50 page outline. I will say that the 50 page Batman Revolution outline is not quite the longest outline I've ever gotten.
I'm not going to shoot for
challenge accepted.
It's close. It's in like the top 3 or 4, but not quite number 1.
These are the sorts of things you can't figure out on the fly.
Yes,
there's a lot I can figure out on the fly, but the stuff that I can't figure out on the fly is, I will figure out the theme of a book on the fly. I don't want to figure out the Rubik's Cube workings of whatever the big mystery is a bit at a time.
And especially when you have those working, like as you said, you have Norman solving things, you have Bruce solving things, but then we even have other characters who are engaging in their own plots that none of them, they do not all intertwine at the beginning of the story. And so you're also setting up these multiple chains that need to eventually link up and sync.
Yeah.
But that is not something that we can realize on page 200 of the manuscript. Hey, this thread with this militia group doesn't actually tie in anywhere. What do we do about that? Because in order to then tie it in, you kind of have to undo the knots, and you can't do that in manuscript. So I love seeing a super dense outline as an editor. I always appreciate it.
And then, I mentioned the spreadsheet. I've been doing for years when I'm developing the outline. Really started with some of my Star Trek novels that had just burgeoning casts and burgeoning groups of spacecraft here and there and wherever. And then really it hit its most extreme and crazed form with Living Force, where I had 12 Jedi Masters plus the villain plus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and I needed to make sure that they all got their screen time and that we weren't away from anybody's story too long. And so I ended up gridding everything out and really, we talk about what we change on the fly. That was one of the things where from the outline in the beginning, it was like, have we had enough Batman in here? And it's like, quite a lot of the Batman got added in after the, we had enough action. And so like there's a particular guy called the Archer in this book. A lot of the Archer stuff and everything about him shows up really after the outline, because I'm knowing that I'm gonna have this thread coursing through this thing, and it gives me a chance to actually balance out the screen time as we're going along.
Fantastic. Well, the book Batman Revolution, as we said at the top show, comes out October 21st. It's an absolute must buy. It's a must read, especially if you're a fan of the original one or you just like a good story. And again, the puzzles are so much fun.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is.
Guys,
how they're going to work in audio, I'm not entirely sure.
Oh boy, I'm glad that's something above my pay grade.
And how they're going to translate, I have no idea.
It'll be a great challenge, John and Tom. It was such a delight and a pleasure always to speak with you, but to hear you talk about the creation of this novel, John. Thanks again for coming on the show. Truly, in a serious, I'm truly sorry to hear about your mom. I remember you telling me, of course, that first time you were on, your mom thought you had arrived because you were on Coffee with Kenobi.
That's exactly right. We listened to that podcast the night the book came out. She didn't actually go to the signing. But yeah, she heard that, and she's just like, and then I was able to play her part of the opening of the audiobook where there's music and everything, and it actually sounds like a real, I've got a real job at that point.
Yes.
So,
Oh God. Well, God bless her. Absolutely. What can we look forward to for you after Batman Revolution that you're allowed to talk about?
I am working. I'm still working. I'm still writing. I have I've got a book tour going on here in the next week anyway. I'm starting in Wisconsin, then I'm going back home to Tennessee, where I get to I dedicated the book to my high school friends, and they're actually all going to be at an event that I'm going to down there, and then I have various projects in the works, and of course I can't say anything about anything.
Absolutely not. Well, as always, we'll look forward to to your career with great interest, as they say. Tom, again, always a delight, buddy. Tom, by the way, if you're not following Tom on social media, he is so great about interacting with you and answering your questions in a lucid, intelligent way. And Tom, I think just for that alone, besides all the other great stuff, you're a must follow on social media.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. Often I probably should be doing work, but that's a work of a certain kind, and I think a noble pursuit anyway. But thanks. It is actually often why I am doing that while I am doing work, which, because the life of an editor is oftentimes relatively solitary, it does help feel like there are other people around,
right?
Other than just me and my 50-page outlines. But thank you. Yeah. And I think it's probably worth just mentioning that while this particular Batman story, as John said at the top, we'd always imagined it as a duology. So this is the completion of this duology. This is the Batman 89, Michael Keaton Batman, Tim Burton Batman story we intended to tell. But I will tell you that I enjoy working with my friends at Warner Brothers and DC, and there are definitely ideas for more stuff in the future between us.
Our passports are still stamped.
Yeah,
good.
Still valid. Or still valid.
Where that will take us exactly and when, we'll find out together in the future. But even though this as a duology is done, that doesn't mean that we won't be continue to explore some cool stuff in the Warner Brothers and DC worlds.
Well, that is terrific news. John and Tom, thank you again so much for coming back on Coffee with Kenobi. For all things Star Wars, news, reviews, videos, and more, head to our home base, coffeewithkenobi.com. Don't forget to join the CWK Cafe on Facebook at coffeewithkenobi.com/community, our family-friendly, spoiler-free group for all your Star Wars thoughts, comments, and conversation. This podcast is possible thanks to the incredible support of the CWK Alliance. Want to help keep the show brewing? For as little as $1 a month, you can join the CWK Alliance and get access to CWK Pour-Over, our exclusive weekly audio and video podcast. Learn more at coffeewithkenobi.com/CWK Alliance. And know this, 10% of your monthly contributions goes directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. Want to connect? You can email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com. Follow me on X at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR, Instagram, Threads, at DanZerCWK, and Blue Sky. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can follow Coffee with Kenobi across social media on X, Instagram, Threads, Pinterest, and Blue Sky, and give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi. And if you want to send an email to the show, you can email us feedback at coffeewithkenobi.com. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you'll find over 700 videos, including past live shows, events, and this podcast. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps more Star Wars fans find our little corner of the galaxy. Do you need a speaker for your next event? Visit danzmedia.com. I love to discuss mythology, leadership, storytelling, or create something tailored to your audience. And finally, grab your CWK gear at coffeewithkenobi.com/shop and show your support in style.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.